Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the STEM Connect web conference follow-up. And today we've got Lawrence here, Coach Lawrence, coming back from the STEM Connect conference. How was it for you?
Oh man, STEM Connect's always a lot of fun. We're surrounded by people like us who are aspiring to do great things, and it always feels like a little bit of a family, you know, uh, reunion, so to speak, even though there's a lot of people there. And then we have fun afterwards. We go check out the cool bars around the area, and then we try to make it to the next workshop the next day. So always an adventure.
That's right. That's right. We had a lot of fun, not only in the sessions, but off the sessions.
There were
What were some of
karaoke
the highlights?
times,
Yeah,
Leona was on karaoke, which is always fun doing Golden, which is the epic anthem, not just of a certain demographic. I think it's the world anthem right now. So that was a lot of fun to see that as well.
well, my daughter asks Alexa to play it, and then we hear it 12 different times in different languages every single round. So it's a lot
Exactly.
of fun.
Global phenomenon.
Yeah. Well, going back to the conference, you had an amazing workshop that really helped people to maybe look beyond maybe ways that they felt like they could achieve their goals and really encourage people to challenge some of those thoughts. So tell us the title of it, what was it about, and then, lead us through some of those examples that may kind of help
Sure.
us to become better.
Yeah, so I entitled this workshop "Break the Mold." I think it's like rethinking your leadership trajectory. And the premise of that is I think a lot of us have these concepts about how to move up in our careers. But a lot of it, we may not be aware of where that source comes from. I remember growing up for myself, right? And I'm sure many of you on this call may resonate with this, right? I had parents, well-intentioned parents who told me to study really hard and I can get into the right school. If I get in the right school, I'll get the right job. And the way they thought about it was actually pretty good. I mean, there were a lot of people who messed around, didn't get good grades, didn't get into good schools. So I did follow that path and then realized at some point the advice fell off because, I mean, it's funny, right? Like my parents never went to US school. They didn't know that good grades, but they had some approach. And I realized at some point in my career, they didn't have advice for that anymore.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't help me figure out how to build my leadership trajectory. And then who do you go to? Right. And so we have these strategies. I want to share a story that happened in my workshop that I think illustrates some of these things. I think most of us have these ground level strategies that we think will get us to the top. And so I pitched this crazy idea to our workshop. I said, hey, I have a vision for flying from LAX to Pittsburgh in 2 hours. And once I said that, there was a guy in the back just shaking his head. Like, there is absolutely no way we could do that. Right. And I loved it. And I called him out. I said, I love that there's a guy in the back shaking his head right now. There's no way we could do that. And I think that represents how we think about our career. It looks a certain way. The way to get to the next level, from individual contributor manager looks like this. And essentially, what I'm asking is, can you leapfrog? Can you think differently about your career? Could I go from LAX to Pittsburgh in 2 hours? And he was like, absolutely not. And what I said to the room is, okay, what if we just allow me to go there for a moment and entertain me? So the whole room entertained me. By the end of that moment, which is like a 5 minute moment, we actually came up with four possible solutions to go from LAX to Pittsburgh in 2 hours. I know you're dying to know what they might be. I won't share them. However,
What? Uh,
the whole room shifted. The whole room shifted from like, there's no way you could do that to like, oh wow, maybe. And that's what we're always unlocking in this kind of workshop, break the mold, is we're expanding your mind on what you think is possible or probable, and then we build backwards, right? If it was possible to get there in 2 hours, how would we do that? We're forcing that question. Okay, one example someone said is maybe we could do a commercial supersonic airline that can get us there. Cool. Now, I don't know if that exists yet, but that is a possibility. Now, funny enough, I found an article in 2013 that said a supersonic jet was going to be built by 2025 between Lockheed and NASA that will get us from LA to New York in 2 hours. So somebody was working on that since 2013. They said 2025. I have no idea what happened to that project. but that exists in reality, right? So what we're pushing here is this idea of what you think needs to get you to the next level may actually be the completely wrong approach. But if you let yourself think, what if I wanted to go from senior manager to VP instead of 5 years? What if it was in 1 year? Oh, there's no way you could do that, Lawrence. I've heard that a lot, by the way. I've worked with a lot of STEM professionals who start coaching with me. They're like, there's no way we could do that. And I would say, is that worth your investment then for coaching if I can get you there in 1 year? And they're like, absolutely. And then we do the impossible. That's what this workshop is about, how to go from what you thought was impossible to something that is right around the corner. Bring it back to you, Jim.
Yeah, no, this is it's amazing. I threw in the chat. Hearing your workshop and you telling me the story, I wanted to find that out because I did hear about this. But what I think a lot of people don't realize when we look at like why do we keep going to space or why does Honda participate in F1 racing is sometimes we don't push or other people don't push us to think about things we could do or what other people are doing, then we don't know what we can do. And, there's this belief that we only do right, what we think is 100% of our capabilities. When push comes to shove, we could actually probably do 40% more, right? And that's something that the military
Yes.
believed. Yeah. And so I feel
Yeah.
like our ability to get through breakthrough is first realizing we've maybe put ourselves into a mold or casted ourselves and locked ourselves in to what possibilities are. And earlier this week, I was actually doing a talk to a bunch of salespeople, and they had these big, audacious goals. And I was asked to help them because they knew I came from a sales background that like how do I get them to think that they can do things that they couldn't do? And sometimes the fear of failure prevents us from even trying. So,
Mm.
tell me a little bit more about like how does break the mold help us to see number one that we are in a mold, and number two, like how do we get past that fear of failure? Because I think some of the things that I would like to say your framework and your workshop really helps us to accentuate are some of those leadership skills of how do we lead ourselves when we don't think things are possible, or how do we lead other people to believe in things more than themselves, and even further, like what are some of the challenges that we can help our company to overcome when we as individuals may see something that other people can't.
Yeah, nice. What I like to do to answer that question is actually lead everybody on this call and then future people who might watch this recording through an activity, if that would be okay. So I'm going to share my screen. There'll be some other slides on there, but just focus on the one we're going through right now. And the activity we're going to do is called Break Your Brain. Okay. You guys can see that with me on the screen, making sure.
Yep.
All right. So in Break Your Brain, what I want to ask is this. I want you to think about how you would rate yourself from a scale of to 0 to 10 of how good you think you are as a leader. Okay. 0 is like, I'm the worst leader in the world. 10 is like, I'm phenomenal. I should be getting no Nobel Peace Prize awards for being a leader. Okay. So, again, there's no right answer here. I just, as a starting point, how would you rate yourself as a leader? And do this with me, right? Put that number in the chat. I'm gonna put a number for myself. Okay.
Okay.
There you go. I'm starting with a 7 for myself. Cool. By the way, 7's a very safe number, right? It's like I'm not too great, but I'm like it's like a little humble brag, right? I love that. Okay, cool. So you guys all got a number of like I'm showing up as a level 6 leader, 7, 8, whatever that number is. Here's my question for you. If you all of a sudden, in a snap of my finger, became now a level 10 leader, 10 out of 10, what would you start doing? What would you stop doing? And what would the new result be? Take a moment to write one or two things you would start doing, one or two things you would stop doing, and therefore the new result. Take a moment. As you're thinking about it, I noticed like the dead time may not be helpful for the recording, so I'll I'll share some things. When I was doing this activity a few years ago, I realized, what I would start doing if I was a 10 out of 10 leader? It's the funniest thing. I would just buy that stupid coffee subscription. The amount of energy and brain power I'm using to like try to calculate the benefits of like, oh, I might save $1 if I do this though. Like, oh, I really want it. It's like I would just hit the buy button and let it ship me coffee every day and stop worrying about that. It's a waste of my brain powers calculating like little cents here and there. So that was mine. Something as simple as that. I would just buy the coffee subscription. I'd love to hear from somebody what's coming up for you.
I will stop worrying about the little stuff. And what I want to focus on is coaching others to become leaders.
Ooh, nice. So if you were a level 10 leader today, you would stop some of the worry and you would start coaching other leaders. Wow. Okay. Thank you, Astrid. Somebody else?
I wrote really similar stuff. I was going to stop doing is responding to all the minor day-to-day requests that I get. That small difference I'm going to start doing what I said, take on more projects that involve leadership practice.
Mm.
Ooh, love that. Thanks, Shanley. One more?
Yeah, I'll go.
Leona.
Kind of similar to you, Lawrence. I thought about the subscriptions that I choose to not pay for. So in this case, it's kind of a merge of what Astrid said, thinking about, okay, what are the day-to-day things that I could let go and pay the subscription or whatever like service fee to take care of for me so that I could free up my brain and focus on whatever being a leader means for me.
Yeah, love that. So, for those who are watching and will watch later on, I just want us to notice Jim had asked, what are some ways that we could see when we're being placed in a mold? Well, the way you saw yourself, right? Level 6, level 7 is your current limitation. It's just where you are today. And all we did was push out how you saw yourself. If you are now a level 10 leader, nothing's changed. You're still the same person, but we access something different in your brain of like, ooh, if I was a level 10, I would actually think differently. So just by doing that, you're already breaking out of this mold of how you currently operate and see yourself, recognizing you're currently in a limitation, and we're just expanding that ability to reach for something else. Start a subscription, worry about petty little things, not investing in the right things, two in the weeds, get more strategic. These are all things now that you, if you wanted to, could actually choose to step into that would help you in like probably increase your leadership trajectory twofold depending on what you chose to do. So these are some activities that we explored on just in shifting how you think about certain things could accelerate your goals way faster. So that's maybe one example of that, Jim.
So you say like the best leaders think and act like executives before they have the title. So would
Mm,
you say that our titles are somewhere along this line, and that for us to be able to actually land there, or like let's say I want to get a promotion to a director level, that would be, let's say, level 8. And it's maybe I have to start practicing and thinking like them versus thinking about, well, I'm just a senior manager, or I'm just not even a people leader. I'm at a level 5 and just doing level 5 stuff in a way. Like,
I got it.
is there a
Yeah, I think
correlation to that?
there is a semi-correlation, and I'll use a different slide to illustrate what you just shared. I think when you look at this chart, if you will, from 0 to 10, it can be levels in terms of, hey, I'm a mid-level manager, I'm a 5, and you can go, ooh, what could I access at level 10? You can definitely use it that way. You could also use it, and I think how I was thinking about it is the quality of leader you are. So, which also works that way too. So you can think of it levels maybe in your
Okay.
organization, but also the quality. Same idea, but I'd actually love to show this one, which is what we call the do have be. And I think this also illustrates a traditional way of building our career, or I would say a traditional way of approaching life in general. Most of the time in the STEM profession, as well as other professions, people are asking, what is it I need to do in order to accelerate my career? Or give me the 5 steps to become a better speaker. I want us to notice how we jump to the almost like a recipe, like the actions first, right? Because we believe, and again, I think comes from, I would call it a place of scarcity. What is that I need to do? If I do those things, I'll finally have the things I want. And when I have the things I want, I will finally be.
Mhm.
Think about our, our cultural parental journey of like, if you do these things, study, you'll get into a good school. Have. If you continue to do those things, you'll finally have a good job, right? That's kind of a prescription. Once you have a good job, what is it then you'll be? And that could be different things. I'll finally be successful. A family will be financially secure. It comes from a place of scarcity. What we're trying to shift people instead is to move into be, do, have. This is what you're talking about, Jim. We can access being or who do you need to become even now, right? Who do you need to be in this moment? Well, I need to become more executive like. Okay, so you might borrow from that level 10. You can grab that now. In this moment, I need to be more executive. You could say that. Cool. If you were more executive, what would that lead you to do? And that could be different at every moment. What we're showing here is when we start with being, you have access to almost an infinite amount of doing or actions that you can take. There's not a right or wrong, but you're accessing this persona, so to speak, just like we did in this former activity, right? We said, hey, from a place of being, you're now being a level 10 leader. What's the doing now? Start, stop, new result. And the new result is the have. So it's actually this whole model. Um, from a place of being, you'll now do these new sets of things that are different from what you thought, and then you'll finally get the result you want. Which, for some of you, if Leona, if you did get all those subscriptions, you might actually have more peace, right? That could be the end result of have. Maybe for Astrid, if you're a level 10 leader, what would I do? I would stop worrying. Great. So you would do less of that, and I would do more behavior and investing in coaching people. Cool. And what would you have as a result of that? You don't have to answer that, but just notice the completely different way we're approaching, um, if you want to call it leadership trajectory or just creating results in general. We're accessing a completely new way of approaching life. So I would call this more of like an abundant way of showing up. Who do I need to be? What would a level 10 leader look like? And that could be executive level, or that could be a quality of leadership as well.
I think one of the things that like this really helps me to focus in is sometimes like we could be a little too myopic when I think about do first, right? I'm always looking at just getting things done. And sometimes I tell people we want to start with the end in mind, right? So
Mm,
what am I doing this for? Right? Am I doing this for a certain goal that I have? Well, how would I do this differently if I were? Which then I think it challenges me to be that person I want to do. So
there you go.
I'll do it with that type of framework in mind, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, it's a way of pausing for a moment because we all just want to jump into action and do the stuff.
mm,
But that actually might not serve us, right? A lot of people are doing repetitive behavior and action that actually isn't moving things along. I would say the majority of humanity, we're doing that. We're just on this hamster wheel. What this is doing is allowing us to take a step back and go, whoa, what is it that I want overall? Like my overall objectives. And when we get clear on that, we can now access something which is when we say like who do I need to become, it's the growth journey internally that needs to take place. Because when we change the inside, that's what actually changes the outside. In the former, right, this mindset of do have be, it's this myth that that will just change the external stuff and then we don't have to change the inside stuff. But the powerful leaders are one that realize when we shift who we are and expand from the inside, we end up creating way more results on the outside. Um, so yeah, it's taking a step back and just reassessing the whole landscape and how I want to show up.
and again, if anybody has any questions from the audience, feel free to ask or share. But I think about this, and then what you started out with us for in the conversation is like I've grew up where I was always told what to do. And in my culture, it was very risk adverse, and though with the best intentions, and my first role models were my parents, I did it without questioning, right? And so
Hmm.
I felt like do have be is what I'm supposed to be doing so I can have what they want me to have and be that person that they're telling me to be in that way, right?
Yeah.
But if I flip the script in terms of what you're sharing, my application then reminds me of when I was in my first management career where my director said, Jim, stop doing this because you are just doing what I tell you to do, but I hired you because of how you interviewed, and I want you to be that person. Because
Mm,
I answered the questions in your interview, not knowing the depth of the job. But I was like, well, if I had this job based upon what I thought the job was, this is what I would do.
yeah.
And so that's who he hired. And he's like, be that person, do that so we can get to those goals. That's another way that I'm starting to like use this framework to help me to
Yeah. I like that.
cover my journey.
Yeah. Love that.
Anyone else on the call? Upakar, Shenley, Astra, Leona, Singsu. Feel free to come off mic. This is a great golden opportunity.
I see what you did there, Jim. That's a
Caught
golden
it.
opportunity, and I have to take it. Lawrence, I just wanted to say that I really resonated with what you have to share here. I think a lot of the work that has to happen first is that awareness piece, right? And recognizing,
Mm,
who you want to be, but also who you already are and playing into that. And I feel like you touched on that a lot and taking what you already have and translating that into actionable steps to get to
yeah.
that leadership level, that next level leadership that you're trying to get into.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a really helpful framework for sure. I think that it's a straightforward idea and something that's not very intuitive a lot of times, but I think something that is to be said is you go from the left side to the right side of the slide and be kind of incremental about it, not expect to be like something that you're not. And hopefully in some ways it just sort of becomes more second nature.
Yeah.
I feel like in my life, it's a little bit of a set in your ways kind of mentality. And then when you go from doing things a certain way, especially if it's a long career, then you try something new. You don't want to just jump right into it, but you definitely have to keep the longer goal in mind. So I'll definitely keep that in mind with what I see on the slide.
Yeah. And just, to answer that, I know there's not necessarily a question there. These aren't easy, quote unquote, valves to just turn on and off. This is a complete shift that I'm still practicing today, every day, right? In any scenario. I was actually coaching someone this morning who's in a situation where he's trying to determine how not to constantly respond to all these company demands on him, right? Which you and I are all familiar with, right? Company pushes things his way, and there's almost this appearance that everything is urgent and everything's important all at the same time, right? And so one of the things we just pause for is, who do you need to be in this moment? And he said, I need to be a lot less reactive. Nice. Notice most of us be very reactive, just like, cool, I'll go ahead and do all of that, right? One of his goals is to go from senior director to VP. And so we asked that, right? This is the work of what a coach does. I ask questions that's hard to ask for ourselves. I said, um, what what would it look like? Like, what would a VP be doing in this moment? Right? That's accessing being. And he literally just took a step back and said, a VP, again, not right or wrong, just what comes to mind for him, a VP would take a step back instead of just going after and executing everything. Take a step back, understanding what's the problem we're facing and what is the overall thing we're trying to accomplish. Get really clear on that, and then create an action plan on how are we going to go ahead and achieve that. And then all the tasks that follow. And then he said, and then delegate all of them outwards. When we went that flow down, he realized, number one, he wasn't doing any of that, and he wouldn't have delegated outward. He would just go ahead and just attack the whole plan and do all of it and be underwater. And the game changer that moment was for him as a project manager. I mean, is worth his weight in gold, right? But it's hard to stay in this because this is so abstract, but forcing ourselves created an action plan that was very concrete, that was literally night and day. Because the wrestle with is, oh, but if I don't go and do all these things, the company may not see me as productive. And he thought that's the value I bring to the company is actually executing all these things. After we did this activity, I said, okay, so if you were to take a step back, look at the problem, get clear, create an action plan, and delegate it out, what kind of value now would you be creating for the company? And he said, oh, hands down, I would be creating 10x more value for the company if I were to do that. Because now I'm operating like a VP. I said, that's so interesting that now in operating this way, you're bringing 10x more value. But it's hard to see in the moment because we're used to doing things a certain way. So again, the concepts are understandable. How to apply them is the gold for which why like we can talk about it in a workshop and then you could leave and go, those were nice concepts, but how to apply them in everyday life. It's really the work that I get to do with people on a weekly or daily basis. But hopefully that's a really good example of how we applied it even this morning when I was coaching somebody in that moment.
So a couple of things, and again, anybody else can ask questions, feel free to challenge Lawrence. I may do a little bit of that here is, let's say a company gives us big goals, right? And I like, what you said earlier about what if we could fly across from LA to, Pittsburgh in 2 hours, right? That's crazy. No way, right? That
Yeah.
would put us in a mold, right? But if we had to think of a way to do this, right? Like what are some maybe unconventional ways that we may start looking at finding the solution versus going through our typical ways that can, by nature, if you're doing the same thing, you may not get to a different type of answer than I can't, right? And
Yeah.
so that helped me to start thinking like, what are the restrictive narratives in my mind, like my gut reaction to things in a way. And so I think nowadays there's a lot of things that are different, right? Companies have new corporate objectives. There are maybe new goals. There's new technology like AI coming into the workplace that really like may transform or change or challenge us to do things differently, which makes us feel uncomfortable. And I think breaking out of the mold sometimes requires us to number one be comfortable being uncomfortable, but understand like what is that narrative that makes us uncomfortable, right? And so um, I'm I'm trying to figure out like besides just doing what you're telling us to do in a way,
Yeah.
like what do we have to be more aware of ourselves so we can take your frameworks and start putting them into practice in a way.
Yeah. I have a thought. You okay if I stop sharing for a moment, Jim?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I don't have a slide for this right now, but there is a concept I want to talk about. Um, hard to just jump into in a few minutes, but maybe I'll give a concept is that the world when we explore the world, it's how things occur to us. So let's take AI as an example. Why is it some people are adopting AI really rapidly, and for others, AI like it's just like the thing that nobody wants to deal with, right? We hear it a lot, almost like this is the birth of the internet all over again. But it's like AI is going to move everyone forward, and yet I know that in corporations, you could be one of them. There's no judgment there, but there are departments that are completely resistant to AI.
Yep.
And what I want to share is in the work we're doing in break the mold kind of way, we're noticing that it's the way we all take in information. So if information was completely just objective data and there was no attachment to it, notice how all of us make meaning of that neutral data. AI is just data, by the way, right? Someone saying we got to do AI is just neutral data. It's our decision on how we're receiving that, which is now creating how we're interpreting that, right? Some people are seeing AI as a threat. That's a way we're relating to that neutral data. We make that meaning. There's ways that people see AI as I don't know. There could be all kinds of ways. You can maybe throw some adjectives in the chat. It doesn't have to represent your worldview. It just maybe worldviews you've heard. You might see AI as a great productivity booster. You might see AI as it can help you do stuff you've never done before. I just want you to notice the way that you describe AI is how you are currently relating to it. It's
Mm,
the relationship you have with AI, and that construct is all created by you. It's just neutral data, and that's something we talk about in the upcoming cohort that I'll be doing, as well as in my coaching, is that one reason we might have resistant to something that comes down from the company or adoption is because we're all relating it to a certain way, and we don't know the way we're relating to it unless we can give it words. Hey, why are you resistant to AI? Ah, because I think it's terrible. Okay, language helps me understand your beliefs and how you're thinking about it. The way you're relating to AI is it's terrible. And I get curious, why is it terrible? Um, because it's going to take our jobs. Oh, okay, nice. So now you're relating to AI as like almost a replacement of you. And so you are resistant to change because you're fearful about your job.
mm.
It's just neutral data. AI is just neutral data, but you've now created this interpretation. To your point, Jim, the story you're telling yourself is I need to not adopt AI. I need to not do this so I can put the stake in the ground that I'm here and you're never getting rid of me. Wow, that's a powerful way you're digging your heels in the ground about AI. And I wonder if that would make you get replaced faster, actually.
Yeah. Well, some of the things that people don't realize is companies don't create these goals because they want to make your life hard. It's almost like I position that the company had to create this goal or has put this in before us because they believe this is worth investing our resources into. And if we don't, it's almost like, well, our company is going to be irrelevant. And I'm trying to preserve not only your job, but create more jobs so that we can be in the forefront of something in a way.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, it's not about how do I respond to this in a self-preservation mode, but like, how do I see this as like, no, they're in it for my best good, even though it makes me uncomfortable. That
Yeah.
is where I'm realizing I'm uncomfortable, and that's how I'm, having that relationship with it in that way.
There you go. Yeah, that's actually a perfect one because, again, neutral data. And so, in the same way we talked about exploring possibilities, like, hey, how might you get from LAX to Pittsburgh? I want to encourage people, especially in the STEM profession, to sit in possibility as opposed to just like what is realistic and unrealistic. I want that too. I want I want us to not just right play pie in the sky. So I get it. Your job is like what is realistic, unrealistic. Yes, that too. But give ourselves a moment to explore possibilities. If the current way you see AI is just, oh, my boss is pushing us down the throat, just notice that's just one possibility. That is the current possibility that you are grabbing onto. What if there was another possibility? Okay, the company's doing AI because it's trendy. Nice. Now we have a second possibility. What's a third possibility? The company's doing AI because I don't know, like they think it'll make us more money. Great. There's a third possibility. We can keep expanding that out. And maybe one possibility is what you said, Jim, which is the company's doing AI so that they can continue to actually exist as a company and that I could keep my job.
Mm.
Oh, I had never considered that before. Now I've opened up myself into new ways of thinking that allows me to embrace AI as opposed to pushing it off. So the ability to explore possibilities is actually really powerful. There could be an unlimited amount of reasons why the company is doing AI. I actually don't know, right? And then we all have assumptions about what it is, right?
Mm.
And sometimes I'll challenge people. Did you literally ask the executive why they chose this? No, I haven't, but I know. How do you know? I have a good sense.
Yeah.
Is your sense pretty accurate 100% of the time? Ah, 99%. So like, is there a 1% chance you could be wrong? Yeah, there's maybe 1% chance. Well, I want to explore that 1% then. I want to explore that 1% where you could be wrong because that actually could be holding you back in your career trajectory.
Or it could be the reason why you've said you're a level 6 versus like being a level 9,
There we go.
right?
Exactly. It's creating what we don't know is actually that could be what's creating the limitation.
Yeah. But it's the
And
blind
usually it
spot
is.
too, right? And usually that's what
Totally.
I would say, like, right? Everyone has a blind spot, and we don't think we did anything wrong. And then you look in the mirror and then like, oh, no wonder why nobody wants to talk to me because I still got like broccoli in my teeth, or like I
Yeah.
accidentally like, oh, my breath smells horrible because I had kimchi, like things like that, right? But
Yeah.
you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And what's a lot of times it's hard for us to reflect back, but you have to see your engagement with other people to give you maybe an
Yeah.
on where you are.
I
Uh,
I think even the broccoli could be the fact that I'm kind of that person that says outwardly 99% of the time I actually am right. That
mhm.
actually could be the broccoli too.
Um, I want to move because you mentioned about your cohort, and for the people in the conference and are watching this, may not realize like we wanted people to realize like, hey, okay, this sounds great. All right, Lawrence, I'm gonna go think about this based upon what you shared and maybe go practice this. But for the people here that are watching and in the room, like I want you to realize like one of the biggest things for me at SACE that I think is very important are I don't like it when people tell me I can do something but they don't do it with me, right? It's almost like, hey, Lawrence, this is great, but you know what? Like, you don't understand me. Like, you don't understand my situation, or like, you don't know my company. And I think it's hard, right? Because Lawrence might be making blanket statements for all of us that, sounds like an infomercial. You too can break your mold if you just do Lawrence's 3 steps. But then let's say you do step 1 and step 2, it works. Step 3 doesn't work. Like, well, where's Lawrence, to bail me out? And so one of the things that we do at SACE is we want every trainer to put like their resources with what they are teaching, and this is where the cohort comes in. So I'll put a link in the chat box for everybody. But Lawrence, you want to walk us through what is this breakthrough leadership cohort that kind of helps people that to actually break through the mold or break their molds in that way?
Yeah, I'll share real quick and then I'll share my screen so you can see that link. Uh, I think the question you asked or what you shared, Shanley, is relevant. In the workshop as well as in this webinar, I'm showing you some concepts that conceptually will stay here. And then if we're just honest, you'll probably forget about me tomorrow. And that's okay. I know that. You'll watch Netflix tonight or you'll go on YouTube. Well, it's just the world we live in because concepts aren't what shift us. It's actually the process of now learning how to take this concept and applying it into a real workplace situation. This is why executive coaching one-on-one is the premium service. It is the premium product. And that's what I do day in, day out, is I take these concepts and I show people, number one, how to apply it and how they're creating limitation for them. The cohort is sort of this in between, right? You don't have to pay the premium rates. You get the cohort, which is like 10 people or less, and you also get some coaching where we're teaching you some of these concepts, but then you're learning how to walk this out in your actual like corporate job and whatever goal you have for yourself for your career trajectory. So here's the page. This is just my website. We're calling it Breakthrough Leadership Cohort. It's just a nice name, but we're going to go through essentially all the topics I covered in the workshop. We talked about creating from vision, which is like getting from LAX to Pittsburgh in 2 hours. We talk about expanding our thinking. We'll talk about other topics like what is radical ownership and radical agency. So we will talk about these things and then we'll learn how to apply them. So executive coaching, each person will be invited to a one-on-one session. You'll get that. And then there are all these outcomes for you, the leader. And then I also put these things, because I know that some of you may be thinking like, I don't know if I can join this cohort, if I can afford it. Well, we actually want to encourage you to get sponsored from your company. And so I put in some outcomes for your employer as well so they can see the benefit in sponsoring you. And then, of course, I have some dates and times. You can look that up. If they need to change, we can. But essentially, we're going to launch this in January. But what I wanted you to see is you're going to journey with essentially, roughly 5 to 10 other people. And so you will get, I'm going to stop my screen real quick. You will get um, shared community on how is each person wrestling with these concepts and applying it. And then you're also going to get in the community some spot coaching every now and then. And then, of course, you'll get the one-on-one coaching. That's really what's going to bring that transformation. So it doesn't just stay conceptual and then gone tomorrow. It's you will learn how to actually do the be, do, have model in very situations that you need right now. Because intuitively you can't see where you would apply that. It's so hard. Uh, It's like a fish trying to describe how they breathe through water. They wouldn't know. That's just I just open my gills and it happens, right? You can't see how you're creating limitation for yourself. An outside person like myself has to show you that. Um, and so and then bring the concepts in. And that's what we're going to do in this cohort, week in and week out, so that you can actually shift and move closer to your career objectives. And some of your career objectives may actually have nothing to do with work. I work with a lot of clients who want to shift their career so that their personal life can actually take the main stage. That's another benefit of this is like, I want to help you create your career life. So yes, your company is thriving and you're getting the roles you want, but it could be so that you get to spend also more time with your kids or more time traveling. Like that is the whole inclusive pictures. It's how you show up. It's the place of being. I want to be the boss executive that does the work, has work-life balance, and travels. Nice. And what would you do then that comes out of that? It really is a powerful way of leading people and coaching people.
So
Appreciate that outline. Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah, do
Yeah,
you
you're
have more?
welcome.
I was going to show a little bit of a demonstration for us to kind of help us to move to the next steps, but go ahead, Shanley,
Oh,
or
no, I just was looking at the website and that you put in the chat box, and it's pretty good to read that and to know like some of the purpose behind it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
um, so I'm going to show a demonstration, and what this is we created a tool. Unfortunately, it's on ChatGPT because it's a very complex framework that we did. I'll put a link to the chat and I'll share my screen. But I know a lot of times we have 360 evaluations or we have year-end reviews that we get. And a lot of times it's up to each one of us to have to figure out how are we going to develop ourselves. And this is where we're really trying to help you for your own career and for you to benefit the company. We created this. And so use this for your own self. It's your own personal career development. It's for you. But here's a chat that you could put into it and say, hey, I'm an individual contributor wanting to become a people leader. Oh, sorry, I wrote please leader. People
Yeah.
leader. How will Lawrence's breakthrough leadership cohort help me? And so you can put that in the chat box. Provide a letter I can share with my manager on the benefits to the team and the company by taking this, and maybe in hopes to get funding or time to join, right? And so if you put this in the chat, it knows everything about Lawrence's workshop. It has all the data on it. But what it also does is connects it to leadership frameworks. Like what are the leadership skills that you want to do? If you wanted to, you could actually upload your 360 evaluation that they gave you, your year-end review, and it'll pull that data into this letter, almost like saying, hey, you said these are the skills I need to develop. Here are the challenges that I had in my 360 review. This is what it said were the challenges that I faced. And here is how this workshop is going to help me to achieve it. Not only for you to win, but why is it good for your team? And why is it good for the company? And what does this look like? And so our goal at SACE is to help you to achieve your goals. But I think a lot of times we forget our goals by achieving them is going to help the company to win as well as your team to win. And if you need to refine this, right, it says, hey, here's a shorter executive summary. You could even say, like, can you help me to put this into an agenda for a quick let's say 5 minute talk during my next one-on-one. Like our goal again is to help you to succeed because of what I realized, and this is going back to what we started the conversation earlier, was you and I a lot of times might not have had other people to mentor us in our times. And so some of this stuff is not as intuitive to us as maybe some of our managers are. And so, like, this allows you to have a personal leadership development assistant in a way to kind of guide you. And if you have any questions on this, feel free to reach out to Lawrence or to me to kind of walk through this. But this is a great start to maybe helps you to see things on no longer do, but how do we help become who you want to be and the actions that follow, and that's where the do comes from in that way. So yeah, so hopefully, the cohort more than anything else helps us to see the benefits and hear some of the things that we want to do. But the goal of this is to how do I help you to communicate this to others, as well as, help you to be able to communicate this in a way that can be very impactful for what your needs are. So with that, definitely want to open up. Shenley, Upakar, if you have any questions, want to definitely give you some time to do some Q&A.
I think what you provide, Lawrence, is a really great direction. I think that you probably get good feedback from others that were able to join in, hopefully attending the convention. So yeah, I'll definitely take this back. I am kind of more representative of my organization, I would say, to be able to see where the outer environment is for people to move through organizations and to advance themselves. So I'll definitely take some of this back to my colleagues and try to introduce them to some of this, but also to kind of link to what SACE is providing. So thanks for this information, but I certainly would like to network with you guys and find out if there's other team members in my company that I work with to see if they're
Nice.
interested in participating in more detail or more in a higher level of participation, I would say. So thanks for doing
Great.
this.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Shelly.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Let's see. Upakar, you're having issues with the mute button not working. Feel free to maybe, if you want to, you can put it in the chat box, maybe. Or are you dialed in? Did you call in for the sound portion of it? That might be another one. You can hit *7. But meanwhile, Shelly, another thing some people have done is, what is the goals that maybe for you and your team that you have, and how can Lawrence help you to think differently on how to achieve goals?
Yeah. I actually thought about something, maybe it's specific, but we did have a guest speaker come in and comment on how in our organization has this sort of dichotomy, but familiar dichotomy of like people in managerial roles that are in the Asian American Pacific Islander groups and backgrounds, and a large cohort of people who are more in the scientific fields, which is, I guess, the like bread and butter of what SACE does. And so one of the speakers that came in, who was not really affiliated with SACE at all, but just someone who was kind of in the guest speaker role, I think, and kind of a networking kind of leader, had talked to us about having an ability to do like an elevator speech or some sort of like self-promotion activity.
Mm,
And
nice.
I think that it links up a little bit with what you're saying, although I don't want to be presumptuous about like what your activities are in this leadership cohort kind of effort. But I think that we took what the guest speaker we had to heart and be able to kind of like link up on like if a person that was in our organization happened to run into like a senior manager or someone in the board level, would they have something in mind to be able to speak of to kind of self-promote? So in some sense, they were kind of like, I wouldn't say, again, being presumptuous to say, but they were kind of being the person they wanted to be ahead of the time that they would actually be able to kind of do and be able to
Yeah,
perform those things. So
uh,
we kind of want to do that for our organization, just to conclude on
of
that,
course.
but we haven't been we're very happy doing some of the cultural events and other things in our group, and that's kind of like where we're getting a lot more traction. But we want to be
Right.
able to have our group members and our participants in our organization be able to kind of be able to step up when the time comes.
Yeah. Just to speak that real quick, Shenley, what you're describing is helping people articulate their value. Could the Be Do Have model be great for that? Yes, not directly.
Hmm.
There's probably an activity they need to go through beforehand. I shared about it. I don't know if Jim can get this to you because I did 2 workshops at SACE. There was a
Yep,
tool I used in the other workshop called Understanding Your UVP or a Unique Value Proposition. It's not something we do in corporate space because what we normally do is introduce our name and title and assume people know the value.
I see.
And what I teach people is stop talking about your title, start talking about the value you deliver. That's a very hard thing to get to But that could be a workshop in itself if you ever want to explore it, is understanding the value you bring and then how do you communicate that value. That essentially is how you create an elevator pitch. That would be like the first portion. And then, how do you show up in that way would be some of the be do have. That's what I mean. It's like conceptual. How do you put it together? It's hard unless I can see it and then help people figure out how that works together.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
sort of a, maybe I would say sort of a parallel activity, but in some sense, once you get good at one, maybe it kind of links into the other. So appreciate the explanation that you had two different like discussion like pathways at SACE Pro.
yeah. But I was throwing out there if you ever want to explore, like, hey, we just need something on that. That can be a powerful workshop by itself too, and happy
Yeah,
to explore that. Yeah,
sure, sure. Thanks, and I'll keep it in mind when
of
we
course.
have an upcoming meeting with like our group of about 100 or 150 professionals in our organization. Maybe it's something to kind of bring up.
Perfect.
And one of the things, Shanley, also is like, what would it look like if even just the cultural things that you do were a chance for people to practice being who they want to be, not just focusing too much on what they do. So, like a
Mhm.
lot of cultural things I say is let that be, for example, the work that helps people to practice who they want to be. And sometimes like working in these type of employee networks, for example, are easier than maybe doing it at your job. So for example, Shanley, like you trying to be more of a leader and learning how to delegate might feel weird in your 9 to 5 job because you don't want to risk it. But if you're doing this as maybe acting like a people leader in your employee network, like an ERG, well, what does that look like for you to have to do that and practicing that, right? So those two kind of work out. And then, so instead of people showing up like individual contributors with like a director level title in an ERG, which a lot of times happens, but they're still acting like an individual contributor, it's learning to use this framework as a way to break that mold and just
Yeah.
giving you another space to be able to do that in a safe space in the way.
Yeah, it's really helpful. I think there's sort of maybe if you look back on like at least an organization not having had like a lot of roots in ERG like groups and things like that, the whole idea was to get people to feel a little bit more genuine about the way that they go across their work and having a personal space to be feel safer. That's definitely something that I think people are um they naturally trend towards that, feeling like they can be more genuine that way. But we are, as an organization, trying to help people to be more genuine inside the organization, inside their work behavior. And I'm just really glad to have that opportunity to like convey some of that, as well as
Mm.
taking something what we talked about today and be able to kind of maybe take it to the next level for our colleagues as well. So looking forward to be able to maybe, I'll give you guys an update sometime.
Yeah. And one of the things I'd say is there's a difference between being uncomfortable and also being not genuine, right? Like sometimes, like for example, like people may feel this is common. People are uncomfortable networking and socializing maybe at a workplace, but I never felt comfortable doing Excel from the beginning. I had to learn it, but now I'm very comfortable and it's an extension of me of how I do my work, right? So sometimes it's um, those type of things of sometimes being uncomfortable is learning a tool how to be able to unleash ourselves. It just takes some time to better. And so like for example, you know, Lawrence's workshop is just a way for us to use as a tool to help us be more comfortable being uncomfortable, but helps us to really unlock who we truly are in a lot of ways, right? Like nobody learned how to walk, coming at birth, right? We had to learn how to fall, we had to learn how to do things, but it's when we see, like, I know my daughter, when she saw other people walking, that was a motivator for her to want to walk. And so sometimes us seeing what other people can do helps us to become who we really want to be in a way.
Thanks. It makes sense.
Well, Lawrence, we're out of time. It's the top of the hour, and I want to thank the people that are watching and the participants, Shenley and Upakar, for being here. And I put some of the highlights that I think I took away from our conversation, and I threw them in the chat box. But, we limit ourselves by believing we can only achieve what's within our current capabilities. And sometimes that perfectionism can lead to become that way, but often the impossible is just one leap and imagination away. And that's my favorite one. And also, I do like if you want to break out of the mold in your career, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and open your mind to possibilities that you haven't considered. And Lawrence's website, it has a link to the cohort, and feel free. The registration button links us back to this webinar, but we will be updating it soon to actually register for it. And if you have more thoughts or questions on it, feel free to reach out to me at any time. We're definitely out here for you and excited for what's ahead. And so thank you. With that, we're going to close off, and we hope to see you again soon.